Get ready for some upbeat banter, plenty of laughs, and a whole lot of love for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Good evening, everyone. It is July 31st, right after the trade deadline, and welcome to episode 199 of Buds and Blue Jays. It's your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. Jesse Burrell, joined by our co-host Jesse Turiso. No Riley McConnell on the show here today. Feeling a little bit under the weather. He decided to go get himself checked out. Maybe he was a little overwhelmed by all the Toronto Blue Jays news that happened over the last few days. We will give him a little bit of a break, but we are in good hands to recap what was a very interesting trade deadline for the Toronto Blue Jays, for everyone involved. Jesse, welcome back to the show, my guy. How you feeling about this Blue Jays at this current moment?
Interesting is in the least part is definitely the last 72 hours for us Jays fans. Definitely sad to say, something to say goodbye to. A lot of good prospects to welcome to our organization. And let's just hope it's smooth sailing for them, and it's a great ride to be on now.
Yeah, the Blue Jays, look, I don't think at the start of the season we ever thought that this was what would happen to the Toronto Blue Jays come the trade deadline. I think we all thought, yeah, the Blue Jays are going to be a good team. We're going to add one more piece, and then it's really going to get us to push it over the edge. I don't think any of us thought at the start of the year this is how it was going to be, but ultimately we kind of knew about a month or two into the season that the Blue Jays were going to be sellers, and this is officially what it looked like. At the end of the day, 9 Blue Jays moved out. We got 15 prospects move in, and we are going to dive deep into all of the trades the Blue Jays made in this episode. Jesse, my man, no other word about it. You ready to just dive right into this?
Get ready for the Jesse show.
That's right. That's right. Missing Riley, of course, because he's very much part of the show as well. But we will make do with what we have here. All right. First off, if you were looking for impacts on the Danny Jansen trade, Jimmy Garcia trade, or Nate Pearson trade, we did talk about all of those trades in detail, in length on our last episode. It is in your feed. Go back and look at that. You can find all of them there. We will touch on some of the prospects here, but this one's going to be about most of the trades that the Blue Jays actually made on trade deadline day, including what might have been the biggest trade the Blue Jays made. And that was trading off our friend, Konnichiwa, Yusei Kikuchi, off to the Houston Astros for 3 players. Right-handed pitcher Jake Bloss, outfielder Joey Loperfido, infielder Will Wagner. And I know you know, and I know a lot of Blue Jays fans all around the social media space have thought, wow, what a prospect haul that we got here for Yusei Kikuchi, especially a guy who's a free agent at season's end. This seems pretty good. I want your instant reaction when you saw this Yusei Kikuchi trade come through.
I was speechless because I first thought it was just a Bloss for Kikuchi, and I was like, wow, that's an amazing deal. Right. And then I saw them see Loperfido and Wagner involved. I was like, who else is going with Kikuchi? Because all the rumors for Loperfido and all that was when they were talking about having Vladdy go the other way when they're with their search for first base, or a Bichette or someone like that to get Loperfido because he was so up there in their prospects, and Bloss how fast he's gone to their system. I'm like all the experts and have said, and other people I've listened to, the Jays have completed grand larceny and robbed the depleted. Depleted farm system of the Astros for Yusei Kikuchi. Yes, I call him Yusei Young, but he has almost a 6 ERA for those 3 prospects when other teams like from Flaherty and that, they wouldn't even pay that for him.
Yeah, it really feels like the only logical way that this makes sense to me for the Houston Astros is they must really have wanted Yusei Kikuchi. I think they must think that they have a way to fix him, or they have a way to turn him into a dynamite playoff roster or weapon. But either way, great news for the Toronto Blue Jays because Yusei Kikuchi was not pitching in the postseason for us this season, and I hope he has nothing but the best in Houston. But let's talk about the 3 players we got in return, and let's start with what might be the biggest one on our prospects list, and that was right-handed pitcher Jake Bloss. And for those of you who don't know, he has appeared in the big leagues a little bit. He's 23 years old, 6'3", 205 pounds. He sits 94. He can top about as high as 98 with his fastball. He's got a 60 grade on that scouting rate from that fastball too. Good slider, good curve. He was the Astros' number 2 prospect in their whole system. A 3rd-round pick just last year. In fact, he is the 2nd player from last year's draft to make the big leagues behind only Paul Skeens. So that is a very good company if you are Jake Bloss. And look, He went cruised through the minors with little hard contact, an ERA below 2. He had a great FIP. His fastball is a legit whiff pitch too, at over 31% whiff rate. And I've always said on this show, there are a few things that I like more that can really tell a pitcher's upside with how much swing and miss he can get on that four-seam fastball. Jake Bloss gets a ton of it. So I'm very excited about Jake Bloss here. Jesse, let's hear what your thoughts are on the new right-handed pitcher joining our system.
At first, I knew who he was, but I didn't realize how fast he went up in the actual system. And it's crazy to see him, as well as you mentioned, Paul Skeens are the only players already less than a year from just over a year from being drafted and already in the big leagues. That just screams excitement for me. And I actually don't mind how the Jays optioned him to AAA after we acquired him. And now he's at the complex, so to get him in the pitching lab, just to see where they can even make him even more elite. And it also makes sense, too, with just how young and how little time and very limited difficulties he's had, coming up so fast. It's no one there's not much to know about him because of how fast he was. Yes, it was forced by the Astros, but from seeing his numbers and seeing what he's done, I am through the moon excited, to the moon excited for him.
Yeah. So what do you think the upside is for a guy like Jake Bloss? We'd imagine he's not going to be in the minors for long before he eventually comes in and gets a spot in the Toronto Blue Jays rotation. He's under team control for a long, long time. Do you think this guy has a mid-rotation ceiling, or do you think there's a chance Jake Bloss can develop into an ace for the Toronto Blue Jays?
I think I want to say an ace just because of how fast and all the numbers that they're saying and all the stuff we're reading about him recently. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking it could be once healthy, we could have one of the scariest righty-lefty combo when it comes to with Bloss, Ricky Tiedemann, or even Brandon Barriera from either of them on the left side once they're back from their Tommy John. Yes, that's a few years away, but once those two develop, that could be one of the scariest 1-2. They have still Manoah in the middle, and even some other pitchers that could come up Adam Macko and that could make one of the most dynamic young pitching rotations once Gosman, Barrios, and Bass are all on their ponies to either retirement or other organizations. If we could have one of the scariest young rotations, almost like the Astros did with Valdez and all that. And even though this is a Jays podcast, it makes me excited for that.
Right. So you can squint and you can see what the future of the Toronto Blue Jays rotation is going to look like with these guys. And I absolutely get that. We talked a few episodes ago about how we really wanted to see the Blue Jays get more position players in their system because we felt, there's really no such thing as a pitching prospect. You talked about Barriera getting hurt, Tiedemann getting hurt, Morales is down there. He's hurt as well. Does it worry you at all that Jake Bloss has already made a trip to the IL this season with shoulder inflammation? Or is that just, hey, he's a pitcher, it's going to happen to all of them?
There's that, and also, again, he's very limited for innings, like certain other pitchers like we have in our organization, and how fast they've made pretty much force him to be MLB. Because realistically, most organizations he'd probably finish in AAA, and that it would have been a successful year. But for him to be in MLB and not being named Paul Skeens, that's unheard of for most pitchers being drafted a year later from their draft.
Hey, 23 years old. The service time is already clicking. We're going to see quite a bit of Jake Bloss down the stretch and probably be penciled right into the rotation going down. It'll be very interesting to see. Jesse, the player I'm really most excited about in this Yusei Kikuchi trade is Joey Loperfido. And I remember when he got called up, the fantasy baseball industry was enamored by Joey Loperfido because his exit velocities had increased by more than 6 miles per hour out of nowhere. That just doesn't happen. And at the time of his call-up, he was leading all of baseball, not just the minor leagues, literally all of organized baseball in home runs. So we know the power is very real from Joey Loperfido, and I'm excited to see what we get from him. 25 years old, 6'3", 220, left-handed hitter, a lot of power in that bat, a good runner, a good fielder as well. He was the Astros' number 3 prospect before he spent too much time in the big leagues and is off that prospect list. But 880 OPS in the minors, 25 home runs, 27 stolen bases last year. Some big exit velocity numbers. Like these very similar in bat off the ball to what Yordan Alvarez has done in Houston in terms of quality of contact. Now, I'm not saying Joey Loperfido is going to be Yordan Alvarez. That is way too much of a comp. And he does swing and miss a lot in that skill set. We even saw him strike out twice today. But there is power to dream on with Joey Loperfido, whose swing speed and exit velocities, if he was on the Blue Jays all year, would be right behind Addison Barger and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So there's a very real bat here in Joey Loperfido. How do you feel about him in this return here for Kikuchi?
I'm just like Bloss. Like I'm excited to have him in our roster. It gives us a left fielder where we can finally move Varsho to center permanently, where we all know where he should be. Mm-hmm. He's a lefty bat, has power, can run the bases, and he can play all 3 outfielder plus some first base.
Yep, even some second in a pitch if he had to, too.
Yeah, he came up as a second baseman in college, and when the Astros drafted him. I am ecstatic to see what he can do, and let Matt Haig work with him and what he's done with all the Buffalo boys. Mm-hmm. It could be a scary lefty bat with Barger and even Horwitz. This trade that we made to get these 3 players for Kikuchi is makes up for all the bad trades and signings the last year and a half to 2 years.
Joey Loperfido is going to go one of 2 ways. Either he's going to really find a way to cut the strikeouts, have some good bat on ball skills, and he's going to turn into a perennial 3 to 4 win player, or the strikeouts are just going to be too much. He's going to go on stretches, kind of like what Danny Jansen went through at the bat, where it's just ice cold. He's swinging and missing at everything, and he's unplayable for weeks at a time. But I think the defense and the base running give you such a safe floor that even if the bat isn't producing as much as you'd like it to, I think he's still got a good spot. We're going to see him a lot in left field too there. And the other guy in this trade, he's a little farther away. His name is Will Wagner, 26 years old, 5'11", 210, left-handed hitter. He plays some third base. He did have a 940 OPS in the minors, hitting 307, 424, 429. He's a contact over approach of a power guy. The Blue Jays have always seemed to love this guy. And I think the Blue Jays were actually really smart in picking up a guy like this because he will have to be put on the 40-man roster next year in order to be prevented from the Rule 5 draft. And Houston likely isn't going to be able to do that with their team. So the Blue Jays are like, yeah, you're not going to keep him anyway. We'll take him right now. It's kind of reminiscent about how the Blue Jays got Teoscar Hernandez in the past. Not now, very different types of players and whatnot. But that seems like the smart business that the Blue Jays did here in this trade with Will Wagner.
Oh, 100%. And again, yet another son of a former MLB player. So
yeah, Billy Wagner's son.
Yeah, Jays are pretty good at having them in the organization. But my comp to him right now for a current Blue Jay, I feel like is another version of Spencer Horwitz. And as we all know, this is good. With that success, what Horwitz is having, you can get excited what Wagner could do possibly later this year or even next year.
Okay, I like that comp. He seems to be the trendy buzz name out of all the Blue Jays prospects that might have a higher upside than you think. So store that in the memory banks, keep that in there. We'll see him next spring training, and we'll see how much Will Wagner can make an impact. Before we move on to some of the other trades that the Blue Jays made here, I'm going to ask you one simple question, Jesse. Did Ross Atkins save his job with this trade from the Houston Astros? It's tough, isn't it?
It's close. He's close.
Okay.
Let's see what the offseason entails and how this season ends. I'll leave it for a cliffhanger for you.
Okay, wow. Because I'm still saying no way. We were firing Ross Atkins for a long time. One trade is not going to do it. And he's been pretty good at making trades in team history. So this has never really been his weakness spot as a general manager. His weakness has just been, general team construction. So I don't think he saved his job. I think we should still be calling for Ross Atkins' head at season's end.
I'm leaning more towards that, but just seeing what he's done, and it might give a glimmer of hope. But like I was saying a few days earlier, because of his drafting and lack of eagerness to find the right players and to try and make defense first, he's more off the diving board into the deep end than really
walking the plank.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. We will talk more about Ross Atkins because he made a bunch of comments post-deadline. We'll talk about that a little later here in the episode. But first, we got to talk about some other trades the Blue Jays made, and these ones were kind of more minor, but they were of names and faces we saw quite a bit for the Toronto Blue Jays this season, so let's get into them here. The first one, the Blue Jays traded first baseman / designated hitter Justin Turner to the Seattle Mariners for outfielder RJ Schreck. The Jays are also sending some cash as well. And I know our friend Chris from the Coach's Sons podcast has already given rave reviews from what he's seen from Justin Turner, had an RBI single in his first game, had a couple more hits today from Justin Turner, and he was really hitting well in the last 2 weeks or so before there. Ryan Schreck, he's an interesting guy. He was a 9th round pick out of college. He just got promoted to AA. He does have an 836 OPS with more walks than strikeouts and does have some pop, so he's an interesting name. He's more down towards the bottom 30 of our farm system there. But man, Jesse, this is great because now we can make some Schreck puns as we come out with our farm system looking up there.
We can be like onions. We have layers.
That's right. So yes, just like our farm system has layers, so does Schreck, and so does this player. Quick thought on him, or should we move on to the next trade?
I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. Hopefully he can make it up to the Bisons at some point, like either this year or next year, but that's what for future episodes.
That's right. And Justin Turner leaving too. We'll talk about that later, about what his departure means for the Toronto Blue Jays, but there is something to that as well. Let's talk about some other trades the Blue Jays made. The first one, we traded one of our middle relievers. It was Trevor Richards. We sent him to the Minnesota Twins. In fact, this was, I believe, the only trade the Minnesota Twins made all day, unless I'm not mistaken, but it seems quite minor for a team that was in first place, unless I'm missing something here. But they acquired a middle infield prospect named Jay Harry, which just fantastic name for a baseball player. 5'11", 190 pounds, 22 years old, but he did struggle in high A ball. And once you see a 22-year-old in high A ball struggle, it's usually not a good sign. But he had a very low BABIP, so some people believe, it was a little bit of batted ball luck, and he was really good in low A and in complex league ball. So the Blue Jays are getting an interesting guy, and he did have more walks than strikeouts, which I know the Blue Jays value very much, or their model does value very much. I think I've seen some scouting reports have him listed as like he could be a platoon guy in New Hampshire, and that's probably the most of his ceiling. But for Trevor Richards, who looks so dreadful lately, the fact that we got something out of it, I think we take that as a win.
Absolutely. It's better than having a player to be named later or cash. Like, at least we got someone that could possibly be one of those dark horses.
Right. And like, even though the minor leagues have been cut a little bit, you still need these type of guys in every single organization, right? So keep that in mind as it goes. And the Blue Jays, I'm sure there was something in that skill set they like that they're going to hope to develop on him. 2 more trades that the Blue Jays made. This one, I think, is kind of interesting. And we traded Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the Pittsburgh Pirates for a prospect, Charles McAdoo, and cash. So Pittsburgh sent some cash back to the Toronto Blue Jays. He's posted some solid contact and hard hit rates this season. 15 home runs and 17 steals, and he had a real big breakout in the first half. Like, he has taken his prospect status up a ton in here. Pittsburgh, who has a billion second base prospects, have just added another one in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to play in there. He has a long swing, so he could probably struggle against high velocity, but I mean, at this point, which Blue Jay doesn't have a long swing and which Blue Jay doesn't struggle with high velocity? McAdoo is an interesting name. If you are a big prospect person in Major League Baseball, I know you've heard this guy's name before. How are you feeling about this guy coming into our system?
I was like Bloss and Loperfido and like the Houston trade. I was through the moon for this because I felt like for IKF getting a prospect of this caliber, yes, it's in AA, which again is AA, but they have someone having 16 homers, 60 RBIs, and like just that's what we need. Plays third base and it's an outfielder, so there's a future power hitting third baseman.
Yeah.
Or even put him in the corner and left, and maybe like a power left fielder, like an Alex Gordon or Mark Steven, like old Royals players, how they were third bases.
Riley would love that shutout for those names, yeah.
And they're both Canadian, so that's why I always, or one, at least one is. But like I'm excited to see this power, and like once he goes to Buffalo too, and see if like this power's real or if it's double A pitching and the power there is in AA, but not in the higher levels.
Yeah, the Blue Jays really needed guys with tools, with standout tools in their system, because they really felt like they had the top guys who are all either hurt or suspended right now. And they were really missing that that shock factor of players that could really take a leap forward in their development system. And I think McAdoo has that ability with the power, especially for a young guy, 22, because power is usually one of the last things to develop. So the fact that he's already showing this down level is a good thing. And I think McAdoo is going to make quite a big impact. And aside from like Jake Bloss and Joey Loperfido, I'm going to put McAdoo as the next guy on that list. I think does make an impact for the Toronto Blue Jays going forward.
Oh, 100%. And if I'm not mistaken, too, he has, I believe, a 315 average on the year, too.
Yes.
With that power too.
Speed.
And like you're hitting for average and you're not just a walking K. I'm definitely like excited to see if that can translate to the big leagues.
It's wild because that's not usually the type of prospect the Blue Jays go for, and maybe that's why we're all excited about getting a guy like that. The Blue Jays did make one more trade here, and this one is happy trails to a fan favorite, but so long Kevin Kiermaier. He is gone. He is off to the Los Angeles Dodgers, which if you followed the show in the offseason, the Kevin Kiermaier market really came down to the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. So I don't think it surprises anyone that he went there. And in return, we actually didn't get a prospect. We got a guy that people in the AL East will know quite well. That is Ryan Yarbrough, who over his years in Toronto has shut down the Toronto Blue Jays on numerous occasions. There have been few times I've been mad over the past few years watching the Toronto Blue Jays play than watching Ryan Yarbrough and his like 91 mile per hour fastball shut the Blue Jays lineups down. But look, we're going to need someone to pitch for us in the second half. And Ryan Yarbrough isn't the guy he used to be, but hey, he can provide you depth. He can provide you innings out of that thing. And for a guy that was already placed on waivers and we weren't able to get anything for, I think this is a good get for Kevin Kiermaier. Do you have a thought on this move, Jesse?
Oh, two former teammates traded for each other. Who would have thought?
That's right. That's right.
And also, like, again, a lot of Jays fans know the name, and I'd rather have Yarbrough pitching than, to be honest, like today's starter, Pablo Espino. I'll take Yarbrough any day.
Yeah, I mean,
so, like,
his numbers have been down across the board, but, 3.74 ERA, you'll take that if that's what you're getting from this guy.
Exactly. Like it's one of those moves, kind of like a few years ago when we traded for Merrifield for Castillo, and Samal Taylor for Whit Merrifield. Like one of those, like, oh, okay, let's make this trade kind of thing. So it's like it could work out great, or just be whatever type of trade.
Yeah. Yarbrough was like 9th in the Dodgers bullpen chart, and Kevin Kiermaier is going to sit on that bench, come in and play some good defense late and be a good base runner for the Dodgers, who are very much clearly going to the postseason. I think we would like to see him get to the Dodgers, go out and win a ring with them, because that would be very good. That concludes the Toronto Blue Jays trades. If you're looking for the Jimmy Garcia, Nate Pearson, and Danny Jansen trade, we touched a lot of those on our last episode, so please make sure you go check that out while you're at it. But overall, Jesse, I think the Blue Jays have done pretty good. And in terms of where these new guys rank into our farm system right now, it's actually noticeable. Jake Bloss becomes our 3rd ranked prospect. All of this is through MLB.com. He slides right in between Orelvis Martinez and Arun Namala. So good spot for Jake Bloss to be. Jonathan Clase, who is acquired in the Jimmy Garcia trade, moves into 8th on our list, right in between Addison Barger and Alan Roden. So if you're looking for a comp there, that's a good one. Charles McAdoo becomes the Blue Jays 14th ranked prospect, right in between Josh Kasevich and Landon Raudas. So a couple good names. And then the other guys, Edison Paulino comes to 21st, Will Wagner 22nd, Yohendrick Panago, which love the name, Yohendrick Panago, going to be a guy. He's at 27th, Cutter Coffee at 29, and RJ Schreck, who we got today, comes in at 30th in our farm system. Any surprises there, or does that sound about right to you?
Definitely surprised to hear how low Wagner is. I probably would have had him like right near McAdoo, or like maybe even above. But it's just exciting to hear those names and see like our prospect will actually grow.
Which is good, which is what we need. Now it just falls in hands of the Blue Jays development staff to actually develop these guys, and that is another story that I know Riley and I weren't that confident in, and Jesse, I don't think you are either.
Not really. Like, I find that once they get to Buffalo, they kind of figure it out with Casey Kendall and then formerly Matt Haig. But now Matt Haig's doing his magic with the young kids in Toronto. So let's see if that works.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit now about some of the Blue Jays that we did not trade in this deadline. I think when initial reports on trade deadline day were coming through that with what we got for the Yusei Kikuchi deal, a lot of people were screaming, you have to trade Chris Bassett. You have to trade Kevin Gausman. Look at these hauls that these guys are getting for just a rental in Yusei Kikuchi. Ultimately, the Blue Jays decided not to. Their goals have been, as stated, they're going to try to compete again next year, and you need good starting pitching. So let's hope Bassett, Gausman are good next year, and they can compete to that thing. And Chad Green as well. The Blue Jays did not trade him. He does have an option for next year at a very expensive $10.5 million, but the Blue Jays chose, maybe they just weren't getting what they wanted. They decided to keep Chad Green as well. And then Vlad and Bo ultimately did not get moved either. Did you have a thought on the players that the Blue Jays did not trade this deadline?
I understand why they didn't move Gausman or Bassett. Like, definitely, you want those pitchers, even Barrios. Like, you want those pitchers who will take the ball every fifth day and will eat the innings to preserve our awful bullpen. But that's another different story. Chad Green is probably the one I'm most shocked we didn't move because of seeing what pitchers like Tanner Scott, Adams, and all the even Gregory Soto and all these other relief pitchers are getting at the deadline. I would have thought we have a year control with Chad Green. Who's going to pay the king ransom to have a reliever of his caliber and resume, and I was even hoping the Yankees would have been fleeced by us, but unfortunately we did. But maybe it's good that we didn't because we don't really have a closer since Garcia left, and especially with Romano down.
Right. So I think people might have looked at maybe Chad Green's under the hood stats don't look as good as they are. And he's definitely not pitching as well as a 1.67 ERA would suggest that Chad Green is, but he's been effective. He's been good in the past. His fastball velo is all still there like it was pre and post injury. So I thought maybe we could have got something for Chad Green, but ultimately the Blue Jays decided to hold on to him, and we will discuss that move a little later on. Before we talk about Ross Atkins post-trade deadline comments, which were very fascinating, we'll get into that. I just want you to give me a letter grade. How do you think the Blue Jays made out this trade deadline based on what your expectations were coming in?
My expectations were low just because of how bad this season's been. I'm like, it can only get worse. So
that's what's like being a Blue Jays fan, man. I get it.
It's sort of being a Toronto sports fan. Let's be real. But
sure,
I would give it a B.
Okay.
I believe the Kikuchi trade and the IKS trade made it to get up there because before, if you didn't make those trades, I would have probably given this deadline a D or a C minus because it was just but those two trades definitely helped us possibly Atkins having a job past this season.
Okay. I thought it was good. Honestly, everybody in baseball knew what the Blue Jays were trying to do by getting rid of their guys on expiring contracts and maybe, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Nate Pearson having an extra year of control. But the fact that they were able to get the prospects back in that when everybody in baseball knew we had to ship them out, I think is good. I will give it a B+ as well. I'm satisfied, but I'm not over the moon with what the Blue Jays got back because at the end of the day, they're just prospects, right? And there are people tell you, be like, prospects are great. They're full of potential, but until they actually do something on the big league field, it doesn't really matter. So that's where I'm going to go on that. All right, Jesse, you ready to get into what Ross Atkins said post-trade deadline? Because this is the stuff I find absolutely fascinating from what he said.
I'm ready to hear his most famous quotes because he is the human quote machine.
He is the human quote machine. And those CEOs, the khakis as they're called on Blair and Barker, they always seem to find a way to say a whole lot of nothing when they speak for hours. This was the first time I saw Ross Atkins actually open up a little bit and actually really got into how he felt about this team. He talked a little bit about how he understands the disappointment for the Blue Jays team. He says, I'm disappointed that we're here and it's unacceptable. And I'm sorry to our fans for all of that. So this is the first time that Ross Atkins has literally apologized on behalf of the fans, which is how he's done his job and done his team. I remember last time, Jesse, that Ross Atkins was selling away players. He was enamored about how he got 14 years of control for all these players. He was very excited. Very different tone from Ross Atkins this time around. Did you have a thought about that and that quote that he made?
I'm just happy that he actually took accountability, because most GMs, even presidents or coaches, they will not, let's say, take accountable, be like, apologize to the people who are spending their hard-earned money in today's economy to go see a team that is not underperforming and making it hard to watch, and like making people think, is it even worth it going even 5 minutes down the road to see them play? Us fans, like yourself and myself and you, will drive an hour and a half from where we live to cheer them on, and only get one run. Not the best way to spend 3 hours of your day, but
but we're sickos like that, Jesse. That's the problem. But for the casual fan who gets involved, and casual fans are their money is just as good as the diehard fans. They want to see something a little more. They want to see this team get even better. That was the first time I saw Ross Atkins address that. I also found it very fascinating that in his post press conference statement, he was talking a lot about how he really feels like the Blue Jays need to find players together that really complement each other. So instead of like picking out a certain type of player, which we've seen him get before, the big bat to ball skills, the contact skills, the guys who can hit well to the opposite field, I really thought it was fascinating with the players he acquired this trade deadline that he chose a Jonathan Clase, a guy whose number one tool might be his speed. He chose a guy with a lot of swing and miss, but might have great exit velocities in Joey Loperfido. Like, these are not the players that the old Ross Atkins would have targeted to get back in return. So I think he's focusing more now about building a competitive lineup, guys who play well with each other, finding, your speed guy, your defense guy, a good contact guy, and putting them all in one lineup. So therefore the lineup as a whole isn't as pitchable anymore, where one pitcher who has one great skill can shut down this lineup, as we've seen several times before. And I thought that was fascinating and might even give us a look in to see what Ross Atkins does with this team going into the offseason into next year.
Oh, definitely. Like, I can definitely get behind that. And like, even now, if you look at some of the players we brought in and how we've been setting the lineups up, like how many lefties we're finally putting in our lineup and balancing it out.
Long enough. Yeah.
It took pretty much our whole life since the 92, 93 years. But like, just seeing all the balance of like lefty, righty, speed, power, or both, and then the famous word run prevention type of players that we can have for the defense too. Like, defense does win championships, but also scoring a lot of runs does too. So you need that balance. You need to create the runs, or create runs, but on playing small ball, your favorite, or the hitting the long ball, like as they say, like tricks dig the long ball. Like, you got to win. You got to figure out how to score more runs, because that's the only way you win.
Yeah, it's safe to say the run prevention model that Ross Atkins came out with did not work. It's over. It was a great idea in theory. I don't know what numbers in your system thought, hey, we're going to zig when everyone else is zagging. Did not work. Clearly, you needed to try something else. Let's talk a little bit about how this roster is going to shake up now post-trade deadline, right? My first thought after seeing all these moves is, wow, our bullpen's going to get even worse. And boy, we're going to see a lot of Alejandro Kirk at catcher now, because he had been sharing time with Danny Jansen for forever. And we actually wanted to see probably more of Danny Jansen until he got his little slump. But Brian Servin is up. Phil Clark might not be that far behind him. They're not really major league quality batters, at least. We're going to be seeing a lot of Alejandro Kirk down the stretch. And then we can touch on our bullpen. You already talked about Chad Green getting the closer role. Was there anything else, any other fallout from this trade deadline that we're going to get to see from this Toronto Blue Jays team going forward?
Well, for when it comes to the bullpen, or I should say bullpen, it's going to be a lot of people of, who are you? Like, who are you? What have you done? Like, how? Like, what do you do? Like, a lot of unknown. For catching, I did see a quote. I don't know if you did too, but the Jays there's possible major league catchers we could have acquired, but the price wasn't right. So I don't know which catchers those were. I have a couple that I would like to see. That I even said when we made the IKF trade, I thought we were getting like Joey Bart or one of their like Yasmani Grandal, like one of those catchers from Pittsburgh. Sure. But I'll definitely take McAdoo over those, like Grandal, any day. But that's what I was thinking. But I still think the Jays are going to sign Carson Kelly in the offseason. So I'll make that prediction right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's definitely the bullpen will be just the flavor of the week. Maybe someone will get hot and be the version of a Casey Jansen or a Billy Koch from the olden days, where they came out of nowhere and just became studs. Our lineup, I'm really excited to see as I've been saying, and it's pretty much should be the quote of the season for this channel, letting the kids play.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing Barger, who I'll talk more about him when we do the recap. But seeing what he did the last couple week or so is why I wanted him my dark horse of AL Rookie of the Year at the beginning in our prediction season. Then Loperfido, and seeing his defense when he was on Houston, and even what the Buffalo Boys have done all year, I am so intrigued to keeping them around and having the players that mesh, like you're saying, what Atkins was saying. It's players that make each one better, not by defense or anything, but just blend just the vibes.
Make the lineup tougher to pitch to, right? Is that what we kind of wanted to see with different types of hitters all throughout the lineup? I think you're onto something. With Kevin Kiermaier gone, no longer leading at bats, with Justin Turner gone, no longer leading at bats, we're going to see a lot more of Addison Barger, which I think is great. We're probably going to see more of Davis Schneider in the lineup every day too. Right? Probably as a DH role, probably get into left a little bit, maybe give George Springer a few more DH days. I've always thought opening up that designated hitter spot is good. You could probably put Spencer Horwitz and Vlad at first base with some more DH days. So it really does open up the lineup a little bit and gives John Schneider some more flexibility, which I think is going to be very good. And I'm fascinated to see what John Schneider does with that going forward. I just want one quick thought on the bullpen before I move on here. Chad Green, closer for this bullpen. I think you and I both said that earlier. We feel like that's his role going forward until if/when Jordan Romano is healthy. Does that make our setup man, our number one eighth inning guy, Genesis Cabrera right now? Probably, right?
I definitely say so. I've been I've liked him since we got him from St. Louis last year. He's just fiery and the little dance he does on the strikeouts, even for him just punching a guy in the face for no reason.
The type of guy you want out of your pen, right?
Oh, exactly. They're like the goalies in hockey. Pitchers are just weird and crazy. I'll take that any day.
I've always thought you have to be a little bit wild to be a pitcher, and Genesis Cabrera is no exception. So who's your next guy out of your pen? Cabrera's not available. It's not the ninth. It's Chad Green. Who's your guy coming out of this pen? Is it Zach Pop? Is it Brandon Littell? Is it Eric Swanson? Because it can't be Ryan Burr, Yeri Rodriguez, or any of those guys. So who would be your next guy if you had to put one guy in to try to protect a one-run lead late?
Definitely not Zach Poop. Inside joke between me and Jesse is because what he does is just should go down the toilet.
Yes, we've seen that. Yep.
As much as even though he's struggled this year, I would have to give it to Swanson because he actually knows how to pitch in high leverage, has the experience. Then I would, because I don't want to do two. Then I would go Brandon Little because he's definitely impressed me all year too. Even though it's not much for our bullpen, but he's definitely impressed me.
Yeah, the bullpen's going to be a big storyline second half as we still got 2 more months of Blue Jays baseball to get through. We will be talking a lot about the bullpen going forward there. Jesse, I have really quick, as we are running a little bit long for time here, and it has been a little bit of a lengthy episode. I did have some Blue Jays trade deadline trivia just to kind of wrap up the Blue Jays trade deadline. I was hoping Riley was here for this because this is going to be very much let's remember some guys. And I know Riley loves that, but I'm sure when he watches from home, or we'll hear it in the group chat later about Riley thought about this. But I've got 2 trivia questions, Jesse. And the first one for you is this. In the 2010 trade deadline, the Blue Jays traded for Anthony Gose, who was later shipped off for Devin Travis from Detroit. Who was the player we traded away to get Anthony Gose? Do you remember that player?
If I'm correct, is it Brett Wallace?
It is Brett Wallace, and people, good one, good answer. People, because that was right around the same time as the Roy Halladay trade, so people kind of think Anthony Gose came back, but it was actually a separate, smaller trade that the Blue Jays sent away to get Anthony Ghost. Good job. I thought I would trick you with that one. Out of B.
I'm pretty good when it comes to the prospects and trades, and like I remember too when that trade happened, getting Kyle Drabeck, who we thought was going to be the next big thing, but we all know what happened.
I bought into Kyle Drabeck very hard, but that's a story for another day. All right, my next trivia question. Fast forward 1 year later, so this is 2011 trade deadline. The Blue Jays traded for a guy and then immediately traded him away without appearing in a game for the team. This was part of the Colby Rasmus trade that we made with the St. Louis Cardinals. This player later came back and played for the Toronto Blue Jays in the 2019 season. He only pitched about 6 or 7 games with the team. Can you name that player that we traded away in 2011?
An immaculate grid legend, Edwin Jackson.
Immaculate grid legend, yes. I literally put that in the notes, too, that he is an immaculate grid legend. The answer was Edwin Jackson. I thought those would be tough, Jesse. You nailed them both. Good job. Give yourself a pat in the back. Thumbs up to you for passing my trivia question there. Out of B. All right.
See, and here's a message, Riley. I do know ball.
If there was ever a doubt, we know our ball here. All right, Jesse, we got 5 minutes left to go in the show, and we've got a whole series recap about the Baltimore Orioles to touch over. Good news is the Blue Jays weren't that good. They weren't very aspiring, so we can really power through this here. Blue Jays lost 3 out of 4 games in this series. Our starting pitching was not good. Bowden Francis struggled early, gave up some runs, put up a few zeros, looked okay. Paulo Espino in a spot start today was terrible. Yariel Rodriguez was only able to get 2 outs in that appearance. Did you have a quick thought on, and Chris Bassett in his start too? I don't think pitched very well either, but I did not watch that game live, so I don't have direct memory. A thought on our starting pitchers first.
It was good to see Bowden Francis bounce back from like his rough first giving up the 3 runs, and then being actually the only one to have the game that we actually won in the whole series. Mm-hmm. And Yariel Rodriguez almost killed someone, but those are my highlights. Right,
James McCann is okay, by the way. That looks scary, getting a fastball to the face like that.
And he stays in.
Yeah, what a guy. That's a guy the Blue Jays should get. James McCann, tough guy like that. Like absolutely, he should be coming here. All right, on the position player front, Jesse. The Blue Jays did some interesting things. Who is your player of the series?
The easy answer is Vladdy, but for me, it has to be Addison Barger. Mm-hmm. 2 home runs in this series, the first 2 of his career. The good old Barger bomb. He 6 for 16 in this series.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
It may have taken a little while for him to finally get the extra base power and like streaks in that, but this is what drew me to call him again what I thought was going to be the rookie of the year for the AL coming out of spring. Like he's this style player from the left side, can play multiple position. Now he's doing it with the bat. He was just phenomenal this whole series.
2 home runs in this series, too, from Addison Barger, who I still very much love the tools this guy has. I can't wait to see him get a run in the second half. He took an inside fastball, pulled his hands in. He's got a big, long swing, and when he is able to drive and connect on that, it does look like a thing of beauty. I think him and Joey Loperfido are going to be similar batters in terms of skill set and tools, and I'm very encouraged with what I saw from Addison Barger. I'm with you. That's probably player of the series, but I've got to talk about 2 players. First one, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I don't know what else there is to say about this guy anymore. Baltimore was like, they intentionally walked him at one point. It's almost like he's getting the Bonds treatment. Like, I don't think there is a scarier hitter in Major League Baseball right now than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with how hot he has been at the plate. WRC plus on the season, dude, over 154. It is top 10 in all of baseball. He is up there. And in the doubleheader, 8 in play, all of them hit 100 miles per hour or harder off the bat with an XBA over 500 in all of them. Absolute lethal stuff from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in this series.
Oh, he's playing on beginner mode of MLB The Show,
yes.
With how he's been playing since the All-Star break. And I think the funniest thing about him having that doubleheader was ungodly, just how many hits and extra base hits. Is the commentator on the Orioles broadcast just complaining? It's why is he up again? Does he not? Why does he hit every time they're up? This isn't fair. And this is the Vladdy why everyone was so upset with Vladdy before he got his haircut, even last year.
Yes, because we knew this player was in there, right?
Exactly. Like we knew he was in there. It's like it feels like 2021 again, Vladdy, and I hope this isn't just so he can get paid and show why he deserves the King's ransom for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed too, the Blue Jays actually swapped Spencer Horwitz in the lineup. They have now moved him from second in the order. They're hitting him fourth now behind Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I think that's because John Schneider has realized how insane of a heater Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is on right now. They're just going to intentionally walk him, and they're not going to give him anything to hit. So Spencer Horwitz, a guy who's got good bat on ball skills, can maybe drive in some runs and get some more RBIs. I thought was actually a good move from John Schneider in this series. But my other player I want to touch on. Oh, go ahead if you have a quick thought on that.
I was going to say no, exactly, and also breaks it up in the righty lefty matchups and all that. And I'd rather have Horwitz in the 4 spot than say Varsho in that, who will just be out pretty much.
Yes, who has run into a couple of home runs here lately, but has been pretty meh on the course of the season. Few more things that caught my attention. George Springer stole another base. Congrats to Stuart Baroa, who got his first big league RBI in this series. Ernie Clement put together a 3-hit game. It's nice when you see Ernie Clement do that here. That was all very nice. But I want to throw some love to Alejandro Kirk. We did touch on him a little bit earlier in the episode. He's going to be playing a lot of catcher when he's not hurt. He did take a pitch to the elbow, and it looked quite bad. He wasn't in the lineup today. I didn't see an injury update on Alejandro Kirk, so I hope it's nothing too serious. But I am genuinely optimistic with what I've seen. He's hitting 327 in July. The only problem is it's got no home runs attached to it. But if you look at the exit velocity numbers, he still hits it pretty hard. He still walks almost as much as he strikes out. In terms of all MLB catchers, his average exit velo of 90.4 is 8th best, and his max is 5th. It's just all on the ground for Alejandro Kirk. And with him, any ball hit on the ground is almost automatically an out. But there is still something there with Alejandro Kirk. I don't think the Silver Slugger guy is ever going to come back, but I think it might be too soon to just assume he's going to be an absolute zero with the bat. Do you have a thought on that?
I definitely, I definitely see that they see that in him and why they refine Jansen Walk and riding with a Kirk. I did see a weird stat and I think if I'm correct, he's hitting over 300 in day games, but at night he's hitting only $186.
Interesting.
So I'm maybe he needs the David Schneider glasses to wear at nighttime, like how KK used to wear the clear glasses to see the ball. Because if he can even hit 250 at nighttime, and with his day numbers, the Silver Slugger could come back. Unless if the ball goes in the air, of course, though. But I definitely, I was just going to say, plus with his defense and framing, all the pitchers love him. So,
yeah, we've talked before about Alejandro Kirk plays better when he gets a little bit of rest, and he's not going to get much rest in the second half of the season. But just worth noting that we might get something out of Alejandro Kirk. All right, and I just wanted to give one more shout out to end the episode here to Luis de los Santos, who got called up, got into the game today. He did get an at-bat, did not get a hit though, but made it. He's in the big leagues. He and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. were the only players left in the Blue Jays organization that were still here when Alex Anthopoulos took over. So a long journey for Luis de los Santos. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. Enjoy that big league paycheck. Enjoy that fine clubhouse food they give you there in Baltimore or whatever it is may be. Congratulations, my guy. Welcome to the big leagues.
And enjoy not taking buses for the road games.
That's right. Yes, at least for this series until all the other players get up here. You are a big leaguer, Luis de los Santos, so congratulations. That is going to do it for our episode here today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A lot to get to, a lot of prospects, a lot of things, as this Toronto Blue Jays team is going to look very different come the second half. You can bet we're still going to be here, hopefully back with Riley McConnell again, as we touch on a lot of things to come in the second half, including what is going to be a very new-look Toronto Blue Jays team, and as we try to gear up to see who can be an impact for our team as we gear up to, I guess, try to compete again in 2025. Jesse, was there anything else you wanted to plug, anything you wanted to shout out here at the end of our episode?
We have the new look, Jace, but there is a new look for all the followers of this podcast on Twitter, or actually, you want to call it? You may have noticed a little blue thing by our name. All I have to say is check, please.
Yes, that's right. Yes, and we are live on Instagram, Twitter, social things. We've got a lot of big news coming too from our show. We've got I've got a green screen coming in. We're going to make a ton of content. I plan to get more done for this. This is just the beginning for Buds and Blue Jays. So if you are looking for Toronto Blue Jays content, you are in the right place. This is the place to be. Glad to have you. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and all that stuff going forward.
Trying to say any better than myself.
All right, for Jesse Teresa, I'm Jesse Burrell. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys after the Yankees series, after a well-needed day off tomorrow. In the meantime, let's go Blue Jays.
Let the kids play.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.